Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Annette Poyser and this is my YouTube channel where I share some of my journaling projects and mixed media projects. So today I'm going to share with you a journal project which I started last week, and essentially this was really started by the fact that I'm really missing travelling since COVID hit back at the beginning of 2020, which was I think towards the end of 2019, beginning of 2020 was when I last travelled anywhere. And because I've really missed travelling and visiting new places, I thought what I might do is travel around the world in my journal. So firstly inspired by Around the World in 80 Days by Jules Verne. I'm sure you've heard that story or seen the movie. And then when I started researching a little bit more about this, I discovered a lady called Nellie Bly, who I'd never actually heard of before. Some of you might have done. And she actually was the first woman to circumnavigate the globe. And she was also inspired by Jules Verne, and she actually did the real trip in 72 days. So I've really been inspired by her story as well. So basically what I've done is I have created a special journal just for this project. The cover is actually from an old notebook that I have recycled. This notebook had some lovely sort of, I would say, handmade paper pages stitched into it. So I've removed all of those pages and I've actually reused those pages to make the inserts for this journal. So I bought some new elastic because all that was broken. It was quite an old notebook, so I ordered some new elastic on Amazon and as the fastening. I also bought, they're a little bit tight at the moment, but I suspect they will loosen. I also ordered these elastic band things that with lovely little bead things at the end to go around the spine to actually hold my inserts inside. So I've created 3 separate inserts for my journey. I might not use all of them, obviously. And I also created this pocket, insert pocket, which goes all the way through. So there's a sort of front and a back part to that. Each of the front and back parts have 3 pockets. So they have one pocket here, another one there, and then a bigger pocket that runs the whole sort of length of the sleeve. So in the front, I decorated the front cover, as you can see here, sort of in a sort of general travel theme. And then on the inside here, I found, in fact, this was the first ever British passport cover. So I managed to print the cover off on my printer. I stuck it down onto card. And then I created these insert pages for that, where I've put in all of the destinations that I want to visit in my journal, in my virtual circumnavigation of the globe, and I've put those all into my passport here. And as I complete each of my journal pages for each destination, I'm going to stamp that location in my passport just to keep a track and as a sort of kind of a bit of a souvenir for when I finish my project. So that's my virtual passport. Interestingly, when I was looking for old passports, I found this, which was the first kind of travel document before the passport even came into effect. And this is a really sort of old travel document from, I think, a lady who was based in the UK. I believe she came from Russia originally, but then she lived in Liverpool in the UK. So this was her travel document. So I thought that was great. So I printed that off. I distressed it, printed it onto tea-dyed paper, crumpled it up a little bit, distressed the edges, etc. to make it look really old. And then the other thing I've got here in my pocket is, of course, a world map. Can't travel the world without a map. Again, I've distressed that just to look old. I've given it a few tears here and there. So that is my vintage map to help me find my way around. And the other thing I thought I would do to add a little bit of interest to the journey is do the journey as if I was doing in round about the same time as Nellie Bly did her journey. So that's in the late 1800s. I think Nellie Bly might have done hers a little later. I think it was 1890 or something like that. I can't quite remember. I'm doing my journey 1891. I think she did it a couple of years earlier, perhaps 89. So I thought that might make things a little bit more interesting. And the idea is that I will do some research on each of the places I visit online to find out what it was kind of like at that time in the late 1800s, late 19th century. And do a little bit of research and find out some little interesting facts about the places I visit and write those in my journal as if I was there at that time. So this is my first insert, and I put a little sort of intro page here. So I did this sort of digital collage on my computer and gave my book a title, obviously, Around the World in 80 Days in My Journal. And of course, because it is the late 1800s, there are no planes or passenger planes, at least at this time. So all of my journey is going to take place via ships and via trains and maybe a few horse and carts and such forth like that. So I will be doing some further videos with some journal with me's where I do some of the pages on my video, and you can follow through with me. If you want to join me on my world travels, feel free to do a similar project. I would love it if more people join me on this exciting adventure. So I'm just going to show you a few of my first week of travel. I started off my travel in London. I won't read all of the writings on each of the places, but feel free to pause the video, have a read through if you want to. I'm also posting pictures of my spreads where you can also read my entries on Instagram as well. So feel free to follow me there too. So on each page, I went online again and I collected some ephemera that reflected in some cases that era, maybe not quite, some things aren't quite very accurate. The London Underground had just opened at that time, so in fact there wasn't actually a London Underground map that looked quite like this in those days. In fact, I think there were just two lines open, and only one of those was underground, so that was quite an exciting time in London in 1891. I found some lovely ephemera. I'll put some of the links down below from where I found these lovely travel ephemeras on Etsy. I certainly will place the links below this video. Then from London, I went on to Paris. And in here, I've included a picture of Nellie Bly herself and Jules Verne in Paris. These are actually actors, but in a play about her life. But those are the two there. I used some of the journal cards I created recently for the iCAD challenge, the index card challenge, and I've used some of these in my journal to create pockets and as journaling cards as well, which I've written on the back of some of these as well. And also in here, I've just, again, to add a little bit of interest, I've got some old vintage receipts, French ephemera, which I've kind of collected over the years. Some of these are reproductions, some are genuine. This one's a reproduction receipt from a French cafe, and it so happens that Jules Verne has actually written me a little note on the back of that one. So just a few fun elements as well. So, of course, I had to include some ephemera with the Eiffel Tower on it because that had just been built as well at that time. Then I travel on to Strasbourg from Paris. And again, I've found some imagery of Strasbourg in the early late 1800s as well, an old ticket of the Orient Express, and it's the Orient Express that I use to do my virtual travel from Paris right across Europe to Istanbul. So here I've included some old photos of the Orient Express, some old photos here of Strasbourg and one of the some famous people from that era. And then here I have also in French and August an old journal ledger piece of paper, which I've also written some journaling on in there, and then folded that up and put that in the little pocket there. And I found these tags are part of the same kit, travel kit I found on Etsy, which have been really nice, and I've included those as well throughout. I've added some tabs onto some of the pages too. So then from Strasbourg, I travelled to Germany and to Munich in particular. So again, I found pictures of Munich in the late 19th century. There's an old picture of a German couple there and a German lady. And this is actually a picture of Nellie Bly herself. My character in this journey is actually Netty Fly. So a little bit of play on words of Nellie Bly's name, but I thought that again was a little bit of fun. And again, in each place, I write as though I was there at that time. In those times, I try and describe what it was like, etc. Then onwards to Vienna in Austria. Again, some old pictures I found of that time. Another picture of the Orient Express. And so also I look for maps as well, an old town map of that particular place I visit. Then onward to Budapest in Hungary, and I found a nice old map of Budapest here. I included an old poster I found of the Orient Express, an old postcard, an old interior photo of the Orient Express, and an old picture of Budapest there. And then to Bucharest in Romania. And again, found a very old, busy street of Bucharest there, and this old interior of a very famous painter, who in my diary, of course, I get to meet, which is also great, is in that this is a total make-believe travel journey. I can meet who I like. Oh, by the way, I met Vincent van Gogh in Paris. This is actually a vintage, some vintage map I bought in France, where I've made some of the pages of my journal inserts out of vintage papers as well. So I've incorporated the original notebook. If you remember the notebook paper I told you that I took out of the notebook, that's the paper that was in there, and then I've interspersed that with some vintage papers as well. And then this is as far as I got so far. So this is the end of the journey on the Orient Express, of course, which culminates in Constantinople, which of course Istanbul is now known as Istanbul now. But of course in 1891 it was called Constantinople. And there I found lots of lovely coloured photographs that had been painted online, and downloaded all of those and stuck those in. They make a really good page. So I haven't done a great deal of writing about Constantinople, but instead I have included lots of lovely photographs. So that's as far as I've got so far on my travels. The next part of my journey takes me to Moscow and Cairo, and then I head off to Asia, then on to Australia, and finally, of course, I make my journey, a long journey via ship over to the United States, and then of course across the United States, and eventually I will end up back in London. So I hope you do join me on my journey over the next 80 days. So I hope to finish my journaling expedition around about the 3rd of November. So at that point I will do a full flick through of the final journal. Well, thank you very much for watching, and as I said, if you want to join me on my travels, I'd love to see your pages. Thanks very much. Bye for now.